Hi, Malka. We see you. We hear you. But we hear your TV, so we're gonna mute you, okay? Okay. Okay. Welcome, everybody. Whoever else joins later will be late. So question for today is, what would you call a good Jew? And could someone be a good Jew but not be so observant? Silent. You can answer however you want.
Huh. That's an interesting question. And I think yes. They might not be observant, but they may have sort of just inside them know to do certain things,
All
mitzvot and
right.
like this without even realizing.
Shelly, you got on from the link I just sent, right?
I what?
You got on from the link I just sent because Sylvia said she
Yeah,
can't get on.
yeah.
Okay. Well, you did the link or you typed it into your
Oh,
computer?
I typed the number in. I went on to
Okay.
Zoom and typed the number in. I always do it
Okay.
that way because it's
Looks like
easier than
Eileen's also
getting
trying to
my
get. Looks like people are
email.
trying to get on and they can't get on. I don't know why.
Oh, well, the number works. They just tell them to go to zoom.com and then type it in.
Uh-huh.
And then the password they know is Chabad, right?
Malka saying a good Jew is someone who lives in Israel. Is that what you're saying, Malka? Yes. Okay. Let's see. What? You think so? Okay. Um, okay. So in today's parsha, we are going to talk about as we've been doing. I know Annie, you haven't really been on so much, but they took on a little turn in this curriculum where we're like kind of like dissecting a Rashi through the Rebbe's words. So it's been a little bit fun. I don't know if that's the right word. Nuanced. I don't like nuanced things. But we've
A
been
different
getting
way to look at it.
yeah,
Just a
definitely
different
look
way
at it.
to look at it.
Okay. Usually it's like it could be the same class, the same like lesson, but they're just taking it from a different angle. So instead of like doing just like what do you look, here's what happened, what is, what are the questions and give us like some type of insight. They're like saying we're like doing it like actually how the rebel would do it in the Sikha, where like take the Rashi and say, hey, what's going on over here? Why does Rashi say this? And then kind of dissect it and learn a few things along the way, right? But we still got the same kind of lesson in the class. Okay. Okay. Eileen got on. Hi, Eileen.
Hi, hi. Sorry, I
Okay.
was on the phone with my mom.
Sure. Okay. So today we're going to talk about an ancient city. And for today's lesson, we're going to use these Rashi's rules. And that is, I really should start putting up this thing over here. Um, Rashi only answers questions when they arise. He doesn't preview questions that will arise at a later point. Rashi answers questions for the first time they arise, and he does not delay answering them until they arrive a second time. And Rashi does not use extra words. If any word in this commentary appear to be extra, we must understand that. Okay. Oh, Sylvia got on. Okay, awesome. Okay, so um okay, so where are we up to? Okay, so we are this parsha talks about a lot of things, including Joseph's the sale of Joseph and all that. And part of that story is the story of Judah. Yehuda is the fourth son of Yaakov, and he is the one that suggested that they throw Yosef in the pit, and then that they sell Yosef to like what's it called caravan that was passing by, as opposed to killing him. Now, the problem was that Reuven, the oldest, was going to actually save him from the pit and not kill him, and the brothers would just do whatever other people told them to do. Um, Malka, you're coloring on our wall. um, and so he said, okay, let's not kill him, but let's sell him. So now he's gone. they only had something what to do. They could tell their father. So they made up a story that he died, right? That he was killed by a animal, wild animal, and now and their father was so upset and like depressed and like his whole life kind of fell apart because of it, or his whole, I don't know, demeanor. So now the brothers are all upset at Yehuda. Okay, so now he kind of like um he kind of like felt like his brothers kind of were snubbing him. And so he kind of like moved away instead of living directly with them in the same like encampment. He kind of moved to another area, and he gets married. He has three sons, and um, his first son gets married. This famous story of Tamar, which we'll talk a little bit about today. Um, they don't have any children. The son dies. So the Jewish law is for the second son to marry her. He marries her. He too dies. And now Yehuda has a third son, but he's not so eager to give the son to Tamar. So he tells her, you know what? He's too young. Wait till he grows up, and then we'll do this special mitzvah of Yibum, it's called. And Yehuda conveniently forgets about it. And let's see what happens. Text 1A. Carrie, you want to do it?
And days passed, and Judah's wife, the daughter of Shua, passed away. Judah was consoled and ascended with his friend Kira, the Adulamite, to Tamina to oversee his sheep shearers. Tamar was informed, behold, your father-in-law has ascended to Timnah.
Okay. So what happens? I said, so now Yehuda's wife passes away. So he's got a lot of tragedy going on over there. And he was going to go to the city called Timnah to oversee his sheep shearing. Now, a friend went and told Tamar, his daughter-in-law, whatever you want to call her, his widowed daughter-in-law, hey, your father-in-law is ascending, going up to Timnah. So that's a kind of hint, maybe you want to go and try to catch him and speak with him and say, hey, you got to give me the youngest son. You got to do the mitzvah of Yibum. Okay. Now, to make a really long story short, Tamar dresses up. She attracts Yehuda, and she ends up. They are intimate together. They eventually end up getting married, but they end up having two twins, and the twin sons ended up being very holy people. They were very righteous people, and the twin sons, one of them is actually the ancestor of King David, who is the ancestor of Mashiach. Okay, so what we're going to go into is not what the whole story of Tamar or Yehuda is. We're going to go into the story of where and what is Timnah, the city that he went to shear the sheep. Okay, so notice in text 13, well, they both in text 12 and in text 13, it talks about them ascending to Timnah, to the city of Timnah to shear the sheep. Okay. So, where is Timnah? Exactly. Let us read text 1b. Anna?
Ascended to Timnah. But of Samson, it is written, and Samson descended to Timnah. The city was located on a mountain slope. One could ascend to it from the bottom and descend to it from the top.
Okay. So, this is what Rashi explains. Where is Timnah? And so we see many years later in the prophets, Samson, the famous Samson, Delilah, Shimshon, Samson, he descends to Timnah. So it's, hey, is Timnah, do you have to go up to Timnah or do you come down to Timnah? So Rashi makes like kind of like, hey, Timnah is not up or down. It's in the middle of a sloped mountain. And either if you're coming from the bottom, you go up. And if you're coming from the top, you go down. And that's what Rashi seems to mean. Okay, but we have a few questions because something over here doesn't make sense. And okay, so number one is if we said that Rashi's not going to address something that happens later on unless there's a real need to address it, why is he telling, remember the 5-year-old who the Rashi's speaking to a 5-year-old student. Why is he telling the 5-year-old about a story about Shimshon, Samson they didn't learn yet? So why is he answering the question now? He should be answering the question when they get to the story of Samson. They say, hey, over there, we remember learning that Yehuda went up to Timnah, and now we're learning that Samson went down to Timnah. So which one is it? So why, which one is it? Then he would answer. Why is he answering it now? And number two, if he wanted to bring up this point now, why didn't he mention it as a remarks to the 12th verse number 12, where it first says that Yehuda is ascending to Timnah? Why does he only address the issue in verse 13 when he mentions it for the second time? Okay. And then the third question that we're going to have on Rashi is why, if we look back at text 1b, yeah, it says, but of Samson it's written, and then it says, and Samson descended. Why does Rashi have to say, but of Samson it's written, if he's anyway going to quote Samson inside the verse? So why does it have to say about Samson and then actually talks about it? Okay, so these are the questions that the Rebbe has on Rashi. He's like dissecting the Rashi, remember? And now we're going to have to go and try to figure it all out. Okay, so one second. Okay, so the Rebbe's view on Rashi is not that he's bringing up a discrepancy between the story of Yehuda and the story of Shimshon, Samson, but he's explaining where Timnah is. Okay, and the other thing is, why would the Torah even mention the elevation of Timnah? There are other places in the Torah where people had to go up a mountain to get somewhere, but it doesn't say they went up. They just said they traveled. Like the famous one is when Abraham took Yitzchak to be sacrificed right on the mountain. It doesn't say they ascended the mountain. They just said, if we look at text number 2, it just says, and he arose and went to the place, and they came to the place. It doesn't say it was up, ascended, mountain, anything like that. So the real question then is, why does the Torah tell us that he had ascended and climbed a mountain? Okay. And then again, what we said before, why does Rashi not explain it until the pasuk 13, verse 13, and not verse 12? Okay. So the Rebbe says is that in pasuk 12, in verse 12, it's not talking about a physical ascent that Yehuda went up, physically walked up the mountain to Timnah, but it's talking about a more of a spiritual ascent. Okay, that we said before. The story begins of how Yehuda was demoted in his brother's eyes. They didn't like, they were kind of upset with him that he messed up the whole situation with Yosef. And so they kind of pushed him aside. They kind of demoted him. He wasn't like the big shot leader brother anymore.
Was he the one that it was his idea to do what they did to him?
To sell him, yeah.
Oh, wow.
To sell Joseph, yeah. So then he was kind of descending. So here, when we talk about Yehuda ascending, it means he's starting something. He's getting back to himself. He's regaining his stature, regaining his spiritual place. Okay, so let us read text number 3, the really easy one. Sylvia, want to read it?
Sure.
We don't hear you. Oh, you're on. You went on mute. You weren't on mute, but now you.
Okay.
There we go.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yeah.
And it was at that time, and Judah stepped down from among his brothers.
Okay, so that was originally, and now 3b. Okay, Rashi explains. Okay, I guess Shelley.
Judah's brothers demoted him from his high position when they saw their father's distress. They said, "You advised us to sell him. Had you advised us to return him, we would have obeyed you."
Okay, so kind of what I explained before. So all this time, Yehuda was at kind of like a low point in his life after the selling of Yosef. and until the story with Tamar and that she births these twins, then he finally gets reinstated in his brother's eyes. So the ascent in the 12th verse is about Yehuda's spiritual stature, about his stature, and the actual journey to Timnah when he goes to share, that's and the whole meaning of Tamar, that's when Yehuda starts to rise up again, okay, in his brother's esteem. So his turnaround, who would know before the story actually happened what was going to be? Only Hashem. So the Torah is written, verse 12 is just like the narration. It's what God said, that Yehuda ascended. Only God knows that now things are going to get better for him. In verse number 13, it's Tamar's friend telling her, hey, guess what? Yehuda's ascending to Timnah. So that is only a person can only see once it's happening. And that he saw the friend, I don't know if it doesn't say male or female, but the friend who is saying this in verse 13 is actually talking about Yehuda's ascending physically to the city of Timnah, up the slope of the mountain. You got it so far? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're talking about two types of ascent, a spiritual ascent and a physical ascent. Okay, but we're not done yet. Okay. And text number 4. So Eileen, you want to read this one?
Sure. Okay. The phrase, and he ascended from the verse 12 can be interpreted as the Torah testifying that he ascended because he was elevated by his journey. But this passage, verse 13, where the Torah recounts that Tamar was told, behold, your father-in-law has ascended to Timnah, is different. It cannot be said that the ordinary folk who informed her of Yehuda's journey used the term ascending, because Yehuda would eventually be elevated by this journey.
Okay, so Yehuda physically ascended the mountain. So then the question is, why is it mentioned in the Torah? Why does the Torah have to tell us that he actually ascended the mountain? Again, other places it just says they went somewhere. Does it make a difference that he actually physically ascended? Okay, so so Tamar's friend that was telling her, hey, your father-in-law is going up to Timnah, the reason makes sense. Why? Because, hey, you want to meet him, you want to catch him, you want to find him. This is the path he's going. He's going on this road, right? So it's important for her to know which road, which path, which direction he's going to get to Timnah, right? Route 66, whatever it is. So that way she'll know where it is. Is he going from the bottom? Is he going this way, up the mountain? Is he going around that way and coming down the mountain? So that is what Rashi is explaining. We hear somebody in the background. Okay. So Tamar did her work and she made sure to meet up with Yehuda at the crossroads, and wherever they had to do, they did. And so that worked. That the Torah tells it to us because it's important for Tamar to know how to meet her father. Okay, so now why does Rashi have to bring this pasuk, this verse from Shimshon, from Samson, and mention his name separately? What's so important about this idea with Samson over here? Okay. Okay, and for a moment, we're going to stop and talk about the slope. Is it good or bad to build a house or a community on a slope? We all know this because we live here in California. We know about the mudslides and the bluffs,
It's got the best view in
Probably
Malibu.
not.
Best view, yes. There's some good things about it. Good views, right? Beautiful sceneries. Nice, I guess you probably get nice breezes and fresh air, right?
Yeah, but what about a landslide?
Landslides and other issues and stuff like that. Okay, so I don't think it's important for us to read text 5a and 5b. 1 second. Okay, but it's basically just a modern day website telling us how beautiful it is to live in a house on the mountainside. Okay. And they're trying to sell it to you by telling you about the chirping birds and the tall trees and all that beautiful stuff and the beautiful view you're going to see. Now, and also how, usually on the mountain, it's not crowded. It's a nice kind of like rural setting. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay. But in the old days, being up high on a mountain usually meant you were in a good place security wise, right? Because you were on top, it was hard for enemies to come and get you, and you could see everything what's going on down below. The thing here is we're not talking about being on top of the mountain. We're talking about being in the middle of the mountain, the slopes. You still have people who come from above and come down and get you. So very, very interesting. What is important about being on the slope? But I guess it did help them a little bit. Okay. So Rashi's saying the reason Timnah was built on the slope, there's a deeper reason for it. Okay. There only could be one simple answer, and that would be in text number 6. Okay, who didn't read yet? I have no clue. I think everyone over here read. Okay, so back to Carrie.
We might suggest that there was one Timnah situated at the top of the mountain. Judah ascended to it literally, and Samson descended to it virtually.
Okay, so no, so one taps to the top of the mountain and send it to the okay, 1 second. What's the next one say? Okay. So maybe so here's saying maybe there's one Timnah at the top of the mountain, and we don't really know if Shimshon descended physically to reach Timnah. We say maybe there was one Timnah at the top of the mountain, or there's one Timnah that was situated wherever on the mountain, on the top of the mountain. Yehuda ascended to it, but maybe when we're talking about Shimshon, maybe we're talking about Shimshon also having a kind of spiritual descent as opposed to a actual physical descent going down the mountain, similar to Yehuda, right? So maybe that's where the morality of Shimshon began to fail, began to descend. Maybe that's what it's all about. So Rashi mentions this verse about Shimshon with saying it's about Shimshon because he wants to say, hey, it keeps so that a few times in the story of Shimshon, it keeps saying he descended to Timnah, he descended to Timnah, he descended. So Rashi's saying, hey, you know what? They don't want to push it into him that, oh, he's bad, he's descending, his spiritual level is going down, it's going down, it's going down. So it's not so Rashi's saying, hey, it wasn't that he was having a spiritual descent, but it really actually was a physical descent. So Rashi is of the opinion that when we're talking about Shimshon, just like we're talking in the verse of verse 13, we're talking about the physical ascent of Yehuda going up to Timnah. That when Rashi brings on the story of Shimshon, he's saying no. This story of Shimshon is actually a physical descent into the city of Shimshon. Okay, because the Torah wouldn't keep saying that he descended because they wouldn't want to say keep saying bad things about Shimshon. Okay. Now the Rebbe says, hey, let's see another reason why would you tell us that the mountain's on a slope, in the middle of a slope? Yeah, okay, fine. So we're skipping 7a, we're just going to go to 7b, okay?
The example explains why this city was a deviation from the norm and was built on the slope of the mountain. Because it was between two cities, it made sense that anyone who worked with both, as well as all the business dealings between one and the other, which would require the hassle of going up and down, would conveniently meet in the middle. If the business dealings were common, a permanent place, city, would have to be built.
Okay, so just for practical purposes, there happened to be a business center in the bottom of the mountain. There was a business center at the top of the mountain. And so it ended up that people ended up slowly building themselves and creating a little city, a little town in the middle of a mountain. Why? Because this way they could do commerce between the two cities. Just a practical example, okay? Easy to do business in both places. Okay. Now we're going to get more of the exciting part of the class, and that is the more what we can learn from this. What's the lesson for us? What's the deeper meaning over here? Okay. So serving Hashem is like climbing a mountain. Let's read 8a. Sylvia.
Who will climb God's mountain and who will arise to his holy place?
Okay, so the Jewish mystics say that spiritual climbing is like Moshe's ascent to Mount Sinai. When we climb in our spiritual, spiritually, it's like Moshe climbing Mount Sinai. Shelley, the Rebbe explains.
From the teachings of our sages, it would appear that Moses never climbed a physical mountain. Rabbi Yossi says, the divine presence never descended below, nor did Moses ascend to the heavens. I suggest that when the Torah says Moses climbed the mountain or ascended to God, it does not refer to an actual climb. The intention is that Moses received divine permission to ascend to ever higher spiritual level.
Okay, so it's not that so much that Moshe climbed Mount Sinai, but that Moshe got to such great high spiritual place when he received the Torah, and we learned from the Torah from Hashem. King David asks, what is it to climb a mountain? Okay, and he says it's a spiritual climbing, and it's when we pray, when we daven, we are climbing. And when you start climbing up in a spiritual sense, or you're climbing up to higher and higher spiritual spiritual planes, you should never stop mid-climb, because then you'll start to stumble. You need to keep going, keep climbing. Text number 9. Eileen.
Okay, hold on a second. It is known that when climbing and ascending a mountain, we can't stop midway and stand for a time on the slope. If we do, it is almost inevitable that we will stumble and fall downward. Rather, we must continue our climb without pause. Climbing God's mountain is similar in the sense that one must always be climbing to ensure they don't fall. We must never be content with the spiritual level that we've reached thus far. Contentment with our current level and failure to ascend from one sacred level to the next inevitably leads to descent.
Okay, so to summarize, A, climbing Hashem's mountain means rising from one level to the next. And B, once we start climbing, we have to keep climbing and never stop. If we stop, as I said before, we stumble and fall. So why is this slopey city mentioned in the Torah? If you're in the middle of a climb, don't stop midway. Don't stand still. Okay, let's see what the Rebbe says. Text number 10. I guess back to you, Carrie.
This is implied by Rashi's words. He wrote that the reason the phrases ascent and descent apply to Timnah is because it sat on the slope of the mountain. The slope of the mountain, which connotes spiritual improvement, prevents one from standing still. Moreover, even ordinary walking is not possible. One can only climb either up or down.
Okay, so I don't know if anyone, we have any avid mountain climbers over here in our class? Guess not. You could?
Mountain hikers. Mountain hikers.
Right. Well, the difference between hiker and climber, or depending how steep the hike is.
Right.
But sometimes you're climbing up, and if you stop, right, you'll start falling. You have to keep going up, right? Or they say when you're like climbing, you have to keep looking up. You shouldn't look down, right? The same idea that you always have to move forward, and you can't afford to stop because then it's much easier to fall. And if you fall, you have to get up and to start over again, right? Not easy. Well, not fall, but you know, they're usually tethered to something. Okay. So, question from the beginning of the class is: can you be a good Jew even if you are not fully observant, right? If you're not observing everything. So the answer would be hey, listen, imagine if you're climbing and every step is a mitzvah, right? There's 613 mitzvahs, and you have this big ladder, a big thing of steps, and you doesn't make a difference so much where you are on that ladder, where you are on that staircase, as long as you keep going up. So maybe you're not up to that step yet, but at least as you're moving forward, as long as you're not stumbling backwards, that is the main thing. So we don't have to look at a Jew and say, hey, he's only at step number 2 and I'm at step 100. What are you doing on step 100? Are you still going up, or are you maybe going back to looking down at the guy in step 2? And that means you're not really going up, you're stopped, or you're going down. But if the guy in step number 2 is working really hard to get to step number 3, that is the main thing over here, that everyone's working their way up. Now, we spoke about Tamar, who had the twins, and their names, well, Peretz and what's the other one's name? I forgot. Okay, so one of her sons' name was Peretz. That was the ancestor of King David. Peretz in Hebrew means to breach or to break through, like a breakthrough. Okay, so why was her son named Peretz, like to breach, or I like the word better, breakthrough, because breach sounds a little interesting, I don't know, to me. Because he jumped ahead before his brother to be born first, okay? And she asked him, why did you break through? Why did you breach? And that's why, and so she called him breach. So that's what Rashi says about this. Text 11, Anna.
Why did you breach the breach? This child would be the greatest of all breaches. He would be the progenitor of the Mashiach, of whom it is written, the breacher arose before them.
Okay, so Peretz, breakthrough or breach, because is the, he breaks boundaries to bring the Mashiach. And definitely, as I said before, he was the ancestor of King David, who was the ancestor of Mashiach, who will break the walls of exile and bring Mashiach, bring us to Geulah, bring us to redemption. So again, remember, just to close the class, Judaism is always about ascending, and redemption awaits to those who keep climbing. That is the end. Oh, there was one thing I wanted to share with you guys before we go. Share dish sound. Okay, just a cute little Jewish song that they have about
the mountain we must
again. Let me start from the
climb.
beginning.
Life is a mountain we must climb. We don't have forever, just the time He gives us. Get to the top if you can. This is the challenge of man. Yes, you might fall and tumble down. Sometimes that happens when you dare. Knowing you, my child, you'll pick yourself up, start again from there. Keep climbing, don't let nothing stand in your way. Keep believing, pay no attention to what they say. Up is where you wanna go. It's dark and lonely down below. Keep fighting, this is one fight you won't regret. Keep believing, you've got what it takes, now don't forget. Up is where you belong. It's where your soul will find her song. Make sure you take one step at a time. Remember that surrender is the road to nowhere. Be proud of how far you've come. You said it couldn't be done. Oh, dig in and breathe out. there's more to climb. To give up now would be such an awful shame. Give it all you got, my child. You don't want to lose all that you have gained. Keep climbing. Don't let nothing stand in your way. Keep believing. Pay no attention to what they say. Up is where you want to go. It's dark and lonely down below. So keep fighting. This is one fight you won't regret. Oh, keep believing. You've got what it takes. Now don't forget. Up is where you belong. It's where your soul will find her song. There's no thrill when standing still, but there is a way when there is a will. Touch the divine. Continue to climb. Keep climbing. Don't let nothing stand in your way. Oh, keep believing. Pay no attention to what they say. Up is where you want to go. Oh, it's dark and lonely, lonely down below. Whoa. Don't let nothing stand in your way. Keep believing. Oh, keep fighting. This is one fight you won't regret. Oh, keep believing. You've got what it takes. Now don't forget. Up is where you belong. It's where your soul will find her song. Life is a mountain we must climb.
Okay.
That's a really long song.
I know.
It was nice. It was nice.
Beautiful